was a big year in movies in 2017. Lots of good ones, and some good ones were chosen by the Academy. And I wanted to talk about that and also give you guys some of my predictions. And I think we're going to center mostly around the 9 nominations for Best Picture. Obviously, we'll get into some lead actor and less lead actress kind of stuff. I'm going to just call out the nominations right now, just in case you haven't been following any of this stuff. And I don't blame you. Sometimes the noise around all of these award shows gets to be a bit much. I will tell you that I have seen every one of the 9 Best Picture nominations. I've used the last couple of nights to download and stream and watch any of the remaining stragglers, but I watched probably 100 or so movies last year. I can tell you what was the best movie of last year. And I can also tell you that the best movie of last year is not one of those nominated, and it pisses me off. But the ones that were nominated, Call Me By Your Name, which stars Armie Hammer and a lead actor by the name of Timothée Chalamet, who was actually nominated for an Oscar for his performance in that film. Darkest Hour, which stars Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill. Dunkirk, the Christopher Nolan movie. Get Out, which was the phenomenon that Jordan Peele directed and wrote. A horror movie with lots of cool twists. Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig wrote and directed this movie. It's kind of a coming-of-age tale with a quirky woman that is played by how do you say it? Saoirse Ronan. Almost got it, yes. And she is also nominated for Best Actress. We've got Phantom Thread, Daniel Day-Lewis' supposed last film, worked with Paul Thomas Anderson. The Post, Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep in a film directed by Steven Spielberg about the Washington Post. The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro has directed this, wrote it, and it's up for a bunch of awards, which is phenomenal, and I'm very happy about that. And 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and I forget the name of the director. I think it's a Scottish director with a really quirky take on this. And Frances McDormand's a star in this. Sam Rockwell, Woody Harrelson, some great performances in this thing.
Hey, Vic, the director's name is Martin McDonagh.
Martin McDonagh is the director of 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Probably the worst title of any movie released in 2017. Incredibly difficult to remember that long one and to tell somebody to have them remember it. And so I don't know what the box office was like, but it's getting lots of buzz. Lots of people are picking Sam Rockwell to win Best Supporting Actor in his category. So let's talk about these things for a second, and I'm going to roll a little bit. I think I've got a little 3 billboards here. I can run a little bit of some of the trailer stuff behind me, beside me. 3 Billboards is about a mom who is desperate to have some closure on a horrific, violent attack that happened with one of her kids. And she really takes the town and specifically the police department to task. And it is a very intricately woven piece with lots of really quirky performances. There's a real dark comedy core to this movie, and also an honesty that I really appreciated. And I got to tell you, Woody Harrelson broke my heart in this movie. He is amazing. I think this is one of the strongest roles, and he is such a good actor who is like this journeyman that just travels from piece to piece. We're going to see him next in Solo, and he does a good job for a guy that was kind of like the dummy on Cheers. You know, the sort of laughing stock on a show that was really just made fun of him all the time. He's really evolved into this powerhouse performer that you are always kind of impressed by, and he is very impressive in this. Frances McDormand is one of the best actors Hollywood has ever given us. You know, she's just phenomenal and commanding and powerful, and doesn't take any guff, and kicks little kids that piss her off in the hoo-ha. And she's pretty damn amazing. She's great in this. And Sam Rockwell is a complete ass and a dummy and a racist and a goofball. But there's something more with this character, and that's kind of the movie. It's really about it's a character piece. It's really about these quirky people that get slammed together, and they got to kind of coexist and figure each other out. And this town Ebbing, Missouri, is not really capable of dealing with the drama and this violence that erupts. But some pretty solid stuff. I was absolutely entertained. It is a great movie, and I do believe that that deserves to be one of the Best Picture nominations for 2017. Let's talk a little bit about Lady Bird, and I've got a trailer there for that one as well. Let me see if I can pull that one up. 1 second here. Lady Bird was one that I just watched yesterday, and I was also impressed by this very honest portrayal of what it's like to be someone with a dream that is bigger than the town they're from. And this takes place in Sacramento, California. And Saoirse Ronan is Lady Bird. Her name is Christine, but she demands that everybody call her Lady Bird. So it reminded me a little bit of Juno, what's that actress's name that was in Juno? I forget her name. Ellen Page, yeah. It reminded me a little bit of Ellen Page's Juno, with that sort of fish out of water. I'm unique. Take me seriously, but I'm too cool for this small town kind of vibe. So there's a little bit of that. She meets some dudes, and she has her first sort of sexual experiences. And she's got an overbearing mother that just doesn't seem to like her. And there's a big question about whether they have a relationship that can be salvaged in there. And Daniel Stern is in this thing, and he broke my heart too. He's so damn good in this movie. I didn't know that he was in it, and he's kind of unrecognizable if you haven't seen him in a little while. That voice, though, is kind of hard to miss. But Laurie Metcalf, I think, steals the movie. She's, as the mom, she used to be on Roseanne back in the day. I'm pretty sure that's Daniel Stern. He's just amazing. But Laurie Metcalf is awesome in this movie. She is probably like a lot of moms, like a mom you may have or a mom you may know, but she's very real, and she's very concerned, and she's very aware of every penny being spent by this family that doesn't have a lot to sort of work with in a town where there are elitists and expectations on social status and stuff like that. But it was good, and it was honest, and it was quirky, and it was cool, and I can see some real value in seeing this. And I also agree that this should have been one of the Best Picture nominations for 2017, because it's a very fun, honest, heartfelt piece of work. And Greta Gerwig is really sort of creating a nice body of work for herself in Hollywood, sort of counterculture with her choices and the stuff that she's in. She acts in a lot of movies as well, and she's great. So congrats to Lady Bird for this nomination, and to the actors that are involved that are also nominated. I think that's awesome. Get Out was a nice, phenomenal shocker of a surprise in 2017. It came out early in the year, and it took us a while to see this thing. I don't know what the hell, but Johnny Millennium and I saw it on Film Fury, and I think we had to wait till it came to home theater. We missed it in theaters. I don't know if I was traveling or whatever, but we finally saw this movie, and it's not what it appears to be in the trailers. I'm sure most of you have seen this thing, and I think it's a surprising choice for Best Picture. It's an excellent movie, but it is one of these kind of genre horror type movies, and you don't normally see this kind of work sort of put up there with a Daniel Day-Lewis period picture, and it's weird that it's there. I can understand why it's there. I think there are certainly some political reasons why it is there, and I'm not sort of trying to diminish the quality of the movie at all. I also feel like there's some strong social messaging around this movie that is very relevant and very cool and very topical and worth getting into the conversation of. But most of all, this is just an amazing movie that has really carved out its own niche and left us with some iconic imagery and some iconic moments. And certainly there's discussion about more from this as sequels, and I think Jordan Peele is being courted with lots of dinero right now to make more of this. But it's a great movie. It is kind of surprising that it's there, but I can appreciate that it's there. I think it's got a long shot of winning in this category. Maybe there'll be some other categories for writing or something like that this will win. But I think we got to applaud that this kind of risky sort of the moment picture has gone on to create this much buzz and this much success around the world. Didn't cost a lot, and it was made with love, and it was made with real craft, and it's turned out to be a massive success. And so, congrats on your Oscar nomination, Get Out. Now we're going to move on to something that I think everybody could have probably seen a mile away was going to be nominated for an Oscar, and that's Dunkirk, which Christopher Nolan crafted. Hold on, I've got to open that up here one second. And this is all about the Battle of Dunkirk and the retreat of Dunkirk. There's actually 2 movies that are about that, which is crazy in this Oscar year in these categories. But Dunkirk, I think, follows Christopher Nolan's kind of patented, beautiful cinematography, these epic scenes. I think he shot a lot of it on IMAX. Lots and lots of, stuff in the vista, lots of epic backdrops. But I think what makes this movie exciting is the combination of the intense soundtrack and the sort of out of whack editing, which keeps you kind of guessing, like, where are we going with this? What's happening now? And the timeline doesn't really matter, but you can see it all sort of stitched together, and the clock is ticking in the music, and it's intense, and it's freaky, and it's frightening, but it's also a little bloodless. And I remember reviewing this with Johnny on Film Fury and just feeling like that was awesome, and I'm glad I saw it, but I don't know if I need to ever see it again. I don't know if it's really registered with me emotionally. And one of the things that I brought up is it felt a little inauthentic that there was no blood anywhere. You know, there was no blood on the beach, there's no blood in the sand. It kind of takes away some of the impact of the horror that these young men were facing and these civilians were facing. It's an incredible story, though, and it obviously needed to be made because it was made twice, and both of those movies are Oscar nominated. Powerful decisions by everybody involved historically. So I loved all of those aspects of it, and I can't fault the production quality. I thought all of the scenes with Tom Hardy in the cockpit were incredibly riveting and so well framed, and so it felt so vital and real. And certainly I was living those moments, but I also felt like, Saving Private Ryan and many other war films over the years have kind of brought us to the battlefield in a grittier, more horror-filled way. There's I think an effort here to make a story that more people will watch, so younger people could go and see this movie. It wasn't a hard R-rated movie or anything like that. I think more to historically kind of capture the moments here, and that was effective. I can understand why it would get chosen as a Best Picture nominee, but it's definitely not my choice for Best Picture of 2017. Let's go into the other movie that dealt with the Battle of Dunkirk and also the first days of Winston Churchill, who was played by an unrecognizable Gary Oldman. He is incredible in this movie. You can't understand half of the things he says, which is right, along the lines of the character of Winston Churchill. It was amazing to watch this performance because you are just like, holy crap, this is just a brutish. His wife calls him Pig. Kristen Scott Ritter, I think is her name. She's been in tons of movies. She's incredible. But he just looks like an oaf, and everybody just disparages him, and he's not trusted by anybody. He meets the king, who's played by Ben Mendelsohn, who I love, and there's scenes with Ben Mendelsohn and Gary Oldman in this, which are just like, wow, man, this is incredible. And I was completely 100% in this film and believing the tactility of everything. Now, Joe Wright is the director, and he's done this kind of work before. He did Atonement, he did Pride and Prejudice. He's done this period kind of stuff where he makes it believable. It feels like the camera choices he picks and the lenses he picks and the lighting he picks brings us into these bunkers and brings us into these war rooms and operation rooms and these dusty studies and these opulent palaces, and it was so transportive. And then you couple that with the incredible makeup effects. That wasn't Gary Oldman slapping on 75 pounds of weight. He actually affixed prosthetics to his face and his body. He added half his body weight in makeup, and he became Winston Churchill. And it's amazing. I mean, this is an incredible piece of work, and they definitely reference a lot of the same concerns around Dunkirk and the terrible viciousness of what Germany and the German troops were doing to all of Europe, and also the incredible pressures that Winston Churchill faced, because this was his beginning. This was his opening salvo. He had to make some really tough choices. It's you have to see this movie. It's incredible. It is a little bit like, you're going into history lessons a little bit, but holy crap, is it well made. I was blown away by Darkest Hour, and absolutely it is a contender for my personal best picture of 2017, especially out of this list. Let's move on to Phantom Thread. This was Paul Thomas Anderson's movie, which is so stylish, fittingly, because we're talking about an incredible dressmaker played by Daniel Day-Lewis. It's set in the 60s, I believe, 50s or 60s, and everything is so slick and elegant, and he drives an awesome car, and he has a beautiful house, and his sister is meticulously helping to kind of rein in his brilliance, and he's such a fidgety, fussy kind of jerk. And then he falls in love with this waitress, and they have what feels like a real authentic romance. And then, some of the layers of the onion start to peel off, and she sees him for who he really is. And there's a lot of, sort of judgment and lots of threats thrown around. And it gets dark, because every Paul Thomas Anderson movie has to have a darkness about it. It was meticulous and really, really well made. But I also felt, in contrast to some of the other work that Paul Thomas Anderson has done over the years, it felt a little lacking in real emotion, And I think that was partly because of the era and partly because of the character and the time. This is about, being the best in this kind of superficial kind of platform here that Daniel Day-Lewis operates in. And there is this inability to emote and articulate. Everything has to be reserved, and it's all, you put on your happy face and you're stoic and at all costs. And I think that kind of hurts the movie. We're seeing some of the most dramatic pieces in this trailer, and it's there, but it's so buried under the weight of all this nuance and stuff that I just wasn't. I felt like they were such successful people that it really took a lot for me to really care about them. They were just so perfect that it's like, what are you complaining about? Why do you have to be such an asshole? And so I just didn't care the same way that I cared about other Paul Thomas Anderson characters. Still, really, really brilliantly made movie, and I can fully understand why it's one of the contenders as well. Let's move on to The Post, which I thought might be a little dry, and certainly there are moments in here that are dry, but this movie, I think, did something very interesting by dramatizing the story around the story of the release of the Pentagon Papers in the 70s, and Nixon sort of threatening not just the Washington Post, but other papers and other news organizations with lawsuits and full-on FBI investigations and stuff like that, sort of showing his might. And Tom Hanks is the editor of the paper, and he's like, look, this is a story the American people need to know about, the world needs to know about it. And so it comes out, and the Post is kind of on a bubble of being sold, or they're a small fry compared to the New York Times, and you see a little bit inside the newsrooms in there. All pertinent, all cool, and obviously made in this era as the news is being threatened on a daily basis, and there's all the fake news that's being permeated through social media and all that stuff, and all kinds of hacking and things going on to kind of subvert, as well as news organizations are constantly facing economic turmoil today. So it's interesting to contrast that with stuff that was happening in the 70s and the importance of an objective news organization. And that's also questioned a lot in this movie. I thought it was an intellectual, fantastic trip and a great ride. And certainly, I've never purported to be a journalist, myself. I didn't go to journalism school or whatever, but I've certainly worked hard to maintain the integrity of the Electric Playground brand and the work that I do. And I identify with a lot of these struggles and a lot of these concerns. And I believe in, free press and supporting news organizations and letting them do their work and letting them dig deeper into stories like this. So it was a fascinating movie, and because Spielberg made it, there's just, every famous person you could think of just pops up in pieces all over the place, and they got the era perfectly, and it moves along at a solid, fast clip. There's lots of great coverage, and everybody looks period and like perfect for the period, and it was really fun. It was a really cool, fun, important piece of work, and again, this is one that I say, yep, Academy got this one right. This was good. Let's move on to, I think we got them all. Call Me By Your Name, which was one that I just watched last night. This is I think the one that, this is the one I think the Academy maybe got it a little bit wrong. Not necessarily because it's a bad movie. I think it's a good movie. It just feels a little on the nose, It's a gay romance story that Armie Hammer and Timothée Chalamet are discovering each other in northern Italy, and it's a coming of age tale again. Timothée Chalamet, by the way, is in Lady Bird, and there's another actor that's in Lady Bird that's in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and it was weird to watch all of these movies together and see these, some of these same faces populate all these flicks. But it's great performances, and obviously this is northern Italy, and it's beautiful. It's shot during the summertime, and lots of guys with their shirts off, and it's a cool story. It's a great story of this kid that's trying to kind of find his sexual identity, and he falls for Armie Hammer, who comes in. He's this history student that is learning about the culture and the historical significance of the area. And there's one of the things that I really like about this movie is the sort of sense of chill that it has, and the moments of stillness, and it's not afraid to just show people just relaxing and sleeping and enjoying the summertime. But I think we've seen movies like that so many times over the years. So it was beautiful, and it was lush, and it was aided by this gorgeous location and performers that were totally into having truthful sort of moments, and I liked all of that. And Chalamet does some really great work in here. But as a film, I just felt like, okay, I mean, I've seen so many pictures over the years that are like almost carbon copies of this kind of story that it didn't really give me that impact, like, oh my God, this is one of the most important movies you got to see of 2017. So I would say that that's one that the filmmakers or the Academy got wrong in sort of nominating for this kind of award. Maybe some of the other awards, maybe the lead actor award would be cool, but in terms of a best picture, I think that's crazy. Not crazy, just didn't deserve it. The movie that deserved to be nominated and deserves the Best Picture award from my vantage point is Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water, and this is an incredible piece of work. This is Guillermo del Toro's best movie. This is a movie about a woman that falls in love with a fish man, which is weird, but Guillermo del Toro makes monster movies, and that's kind of what his forte is, and it's a more beautiful piece than that. It's not just a weirdo, period sci-fi thing. There's real heart, there's real tenderness, there's real love and significance with this beautifully crafted piece of work here, And Richard Jenkins is nominated as one of the best supporting actors. He's sensational in this movie. Heartfelt and gentle and genuine, and just a beautiful supporting character in all senses of the word. Sally Hawkins, who's the lead actor here, actress, is amazing. She doesn't say much in this movie. I don't think she really says anything. She's just she emotes, and she has this ferocious kind of spirit to not be sort of diminished or placed into a box or whatever. And she really she chases her dream, and her dream happens to be Doug Jones in this incredibly elaborate makeup. The story is fantastical, but there's, just this, I don't know, poetic truthfulness about it that I was astounded. I was moved. I was floored. There was like a movie musical overtones to it. There was a love of cinema all the way through this movie. It looks gorgeous. Guillermo del Toro shot this in the Toronto area, and it just looked like we really went back in time. Michael Shannon is also excellent in this movie. He's very menacing, and he's very creepy. And I don't know if it's going to win because, again, it's one of these genre-type pictures, It's a weird kind of concept, but this is the movie that should win it. This is the movie. The Shape of Water is incredible, and it's astounding, and it was a surprise, and you couldn't take your eyes off of it. And I hope you all saw it. It was awesome. Now, the movie that is conspicuously absent and I think is a crying shame is Blade Runner 2049. Now, that is the movie that I feel should be Best Picture, and some of the other categories that it is not in, it should also have some names in those categories as well. But Blade Runner, for my money, hands down, best movie of 2017. It's a crying shame that it's not in the Best Picture category. But my fingers are crossed that The Shape of Water is the winner. My prediction is that it's going to be, I really hope it is The Shape of Water, but my prediction for Best Picture is that the Academy is going to give it to Dunkirk. I think that they probably will. Lead actor, I think we've got Timothée Chalamet, Daniel Day-Lewis in Phantom Thread, Daniel Kaluuya in Get Out, Gary Oldman, and Denzel Washington and Roman J. Israel Esquire. I didn't see that movie. That's one that I didn't see, but I don't see how anybody could take that prize away from Gary Oldman in Darkest Hour. Amazing. Lead actress is Sally Hawkins in Shape of Water, Frances McDormand, Margot Robbie in I, Tonya. I did not see I, Tonya, and I suspect that Margot Robbie did a great job in that, but I have not seen it. Saoirse Ronan in Lady Bird, and Meryl Streep in The Post. I think that Frances McDormand is probably going to win. My vote would be for Sally Hawkins. And supporting actor, we got William Dafoe in The Florida Project. He was great in that. I didn't really love that movie. I thought it was a little overrated, but it was a good performance by him. Woody Harrelson in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Richard Jenkins, Christopher Plummer in All the Money in the World. Again, I did not see that one, unfortunately. I want to see that, though. And of course, he had the challenge of having to step into the role that Kevin Spacey was fired from, which is crazy. Sam Rockwell also nominated for 3 Billboards. My vote is for, my choice would be for Richard Jenkins in The Shape of Water, but my thought is that Sam Rockwell is probably going to take the award from the Academy. But I hope Richard Jenkins is up on stage. And supporting actress, Mary J. Blige in Mudbound. She was great. I saw that movie. It is terrific. Allison Janney in I, Tonya. I did not see that. Leslie Manville in Phantom Thread. She was great. And Laurie Metcalf in Lady Bird. Octavia Spencer in The Shape of Water. Great, great. I think the Academy and myself are going to agree on this and give it to Laurie Metcalf in Lady Bird. She was awesome in that movie. Best Director for nominees are Christopher Nolan in Dunkirk, Jordan Peele in Get Out, Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig, Phantom Thread, Paul Thomas Anderson, and Guillermo del Toro. If del Toro does not win that Oscar, the Academy is drunk. He deserves it. I predict that he's going to win that, and if he doesn't win it, they're crazy. Because he made this movie for not a lot of money. That's the other side of this thing, right? He didn't get the studio back. Here's $120 million. I think he made this thing for like 20, 25 million. And it doesn't look it. It looks amazing. Animated feature, we got Boss Baby, Breadwinner, Coco, Ferdinand, Loving Vincent. You're crazy if you think anything other than Coco isn't going to win that. Coco is winning that for sure. And then adapted screenplay. Here's where we get some interesting stuff. Call Me By Your Name, The Disaster Artist, Logan, Molly's Game, and Mudbound. I want Logan to win. I don't know if they will, but I think that would be incredible if Logan won. I thought it was obviously an amazing movie, one of my favorites of the year. Easily could have replaced Call Me by Your Name for one of the contenders for Best Picture. I mean, I can't believe that it isn't up there. That's the one that I would pick for Best Adapted. Best Original, we got the Big Sick, Get Out, Lady Bird, Shape of Water, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing. I give it to The Shape of Water again. You know, I think The Shape of Water walked away with the most nominations. They deserved every single one of them. Cinematography, Blade Runner 2049, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Mudbound, Shape of Water. If Blade Runner doesn't win cinematography, everybody should quit. Hollywood is over, okay? And visual effects, we got Blade Runner, Guardians of the Galaxy, Kong, Skull Island, Star Wars The Last Jedi, War for the Planet of the Apes. Now, this is incredibly tough because there was excellent work in everything there. I'm going to cross Kong off. It was good, but Guardians off. I think Star Wars has the problem with it is like they're going to be coming out every year, so we're going to see awesome Star Wars effects all the time. It's really about War for the Planet of the Apes or Blade Runner, and in terms of visual effects, I think the stuff in War for the Planet of the Apes is staggering. Like, it's so seamless. You never stop thinking that, like, you never think for a moment that you're not looking at real apes up there, and that's amazing. It was so good. It was crazy. I don't know if you saw this movie. War for the Planet of the Apes is amazing. It's a great, great movie. Again, another worthy contender for Best Movie of 2017. It was way better than it had any right to be. It should have just been like, well, let's make more money on our apes movies. But no, it's got a ton of like value and heart and great performances. And I think, as much as I love the effects in Blade Runner and Star Wars and Guardians, I think it's more impressive the way that they brought these apes to life and made them so realistic in a world that we kind of know. Also, Woody Harrelson is excellent in that movie as well. But War for the Planet of the Apes, I think, gets my pick for that. Now, there are a bunch of other awards and stuff. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but that is my my Oscar deluge. And you know what? We can talk a little bit more about that. I'd love to hear your comments. If you've been making them as I've been streaming, let's hear them when we get into Let's Play and Chat. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. But right now, let's take a look at a buried treasure.